Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Would you like even more content? Here's my Patreon. Now onto the stories. Case file number 1316, written by ALIENANAL. Even soup can vanish. I was living alone just after breaking up with my girlfriend at the time. It was a bit of a messy breakup, and she took her name off the power bill. When I got home that day after work, I discovered the power had been switched off. Sick. So anyway, a few weeks prior, my mom had brought over an ice cream container full of some sort of meat-based soup that I had left in the freezer for a while. When the power was cut off, I just decided to live off delivery pizza and sit in candlelight for a week or so. I never opened my fridge or freezer for that whole week. Come to get the power back in a week or so later, and I think, oh crap, freezer food. I opened up freezer and it stinks badly, so I shut the freezer door and decide to deal with it for maybe another month. It comes time to face the music and get rid of this disgusting container of death. I grab a towel and wrap it around the container. I didn't know what to do with it, so I just placed it down a corner in my laundry and decided I would just ignore it forever. A month later, and my ex-girlfriend wants to hang out as we missed each other's company, and we just do that. We're pretty high, and she comments on the mess of the place, and I'm like, yeah, I know it's gross, but Anyway, I tell her about the container, and she just says she will remove it for me. We go into the laundry, and I'm standing behind her as she's kneeling down, slowly unwrapping this crunchy, dried towel, waiting for the smell to unleash. Nothing comes from it. There was nothing in the towel. No container, no soup. It was just a balled up towel. That was pretty freaky. Case notes file 1316. Even soup can vanish. To what extent does an object have to be connected? If we're talking about liquid like in a soup, could it transition universes? And I do think this was a vanishing because even if the water was absorbed by the rags, the towels that you wrap this soup in, which by the way, this isn't exactly the healthiest way to live, the cleanest way, I'm assuming you knew that now. Anyways, so liquid can transition universes. Could the entire ocean or an entire lake just vanish or move over to a different universe? That would be, imagine waking up to that on the news, the entire ocean vanished. But the liquid definitely did vanish because the food mass itself wouldn't have been absorbed. So that would still be there. The remnants of the soup, the veggies and the soup, the meat would still be wrapped in the towel. And the fact that it wasn't there means the whole thing did vanish. Maybe in the frozen state. So maybe it has to be solid to vanish. That would be preferable to having entire oceans vanish, I would say. Creepy file number 126, written by correcticallytech. The first clue, Chapstick. I came home and there was a tube of chapstick sitting upright on the kitchen counter. I don't use chapstick, I never buy it. Hadn't had anyone over in weeks. Everything was locked. It just seemed like it must have come from nowhere. Then later I got a phone call. I used to answer the phone by saying, "This is my first name." When I did, the person on the other end said my last name and then hung up. The phone call came from the area code that I was living in, despite me having an area code from another part of the country. I called the number back, but they would just answer and hang up. I waited a few days and called the number again, but this time from a payphone in another city. They picked up and said my first name. I said, "Yeah," and they hung up again. How did they know it was me calling when it was from a payphone in another city? I paid for one of those "who's calling me" services to find out who the number belonged to. It was just some guy. When I googled his name, the only result I got was a blank webpage where if you scrolled to the bottom, it had his name and phone number. I couldn't find any address or background information for this person. Afterwards, my phone would go roaming whenever I tried to make a phone call. This all freaked me out. I got the feeling like I was being watched or followed. I decided to move into a new apartment. On the day I was packing my things in the moving truck, a helicopter showed up and hovered over my home for a few minutes. It wasn't high up either, it was really low, directly over my house. I would occasionally call the number from a different payphone, but nobody ever answered again. Case notes for the creepy file number 126. The first clue, chapstick. Well, you're not wrong. That would be the first clue if you never use chapstick. Which you should, by the way. It just feels good. Keep your lips hydrated, protected from the elements. Maybe you did just have a stalker, but someone that is truly messed up, even going as far as hovering a helicopter over your place. And how did they know when you called from the payphone in another city? Unless they were just answering the phone and always saying your name. Maybe that's the case. Whenever someone called in, that would be the only way I can think of, but it's creepy like hell. I would be dipping states for sure, not living in the same place, maybe even changing your name. Which is a good way to deal with stalkers, by the way. You can legally change your name. Sometimes stalkers have friends within cell service providers or other utilities where they can always know where you're going because they have relayed information from those places. So keep that in mind. Bonus file written by Riostarwow, the Trampoline Specter. I grew up about 20 minutes outside of town. One night when I was about 11, I got up to get a glass of water. The water came from the fridge, and I always kept a glass beside the fridge for me at night. In the kitchen, there was a big window above the sink that overlooked the front yard, which included just fields and so on. It was very dark outside, and I could only see a little ways out from the light I had turned on in the kitchen while filling my glass. There was a trampoline out in the front yard of the house, a decent way away from the window. So anyways, that night while drinking my water, I was standing back from the window, but still looking outside. I then noticed some movement in the dark that didn't make sense. It took a minute for my brain to realize that it was someone bouncing on the trampoline. I really started to focus on it, trying to make sense of what I was looking at. As I was doing this, the figure slowly stopped bouncing, and I could tell it must have noticed me, and I could feel all the hairs on my body stand up. An instant later, whatever it was moved really fast towards the window, almost like instantaneously it was looking at me through the window. I only looked for a second, because this all happened very fast, but from what I recall, my brain registered it as a human face, but that something didn't feel right. I took my cup with me to my room, and had a bad time trying to sleep. I never turned on the light while getting water at night again, and never looked out the window while drinking the water either. So many weird things happened in that home. Case notes for the bonus file, the Trampoline Specter. In some movies where there's a spirit or a zombie or something and they just accelerate the video, you see it move extremely quickly right up to the window, pressed against this glass. I would not be able to handle that, I have to admit. The fact that you actually managed to go back in your room and sleep after that, even if it was a human being that just moved super fast, that would be enough to send me to another place entirely. Get a hotel at least. And now time for the quote of the day. You know, the ancient Egyptians had a beautiful belief about death. When their souls got to the entrance of heaven, the guards asked 2 questions. Their answers determined whether they were able to enter or not. The first question, have you found joy in your life? The second question, has your life brought joy to others? The Carter Chambers. Well, I think most people would answer yes to the first one, the first question, especially in modern times, but not everyone, which is very sad to think about. And I don't think you have to have found joy in your life to enter heaven. That would be strange, given some people are dealt truly horrific hands that are almost unimaginable, being born without sight or any senses, or in extremely poor countries where there's just no hope. A higher deity wouldn't judge you for not being happy. I think that would be ridiculous. But the second one, bring joy to other people's lives. What could possibly matter more? It's important to bring joy to your life, but make sure you bring joy to others as well. And you know what? In doing so, it's the most miraculous thing. You get more joy in return. Not even transactionally. It just tends to happen. I don't know if it's karma. Karma's an interesting idea. I don't know if it's exactly karma, but something along those lines is very valid and true. Try it. You'll see. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.